here we are. This is Sex Love Psychedelics, and I'm your host, Dr. Kat. Bringing you psychosexual conversations that will leave you intellectually turned on and hungry for more.
You and I were talking about this before the show, the ruling of the FDA against rejecting the MDMA as a treatment for PTSD and saying that, it's the outcome isn't, the risks outweigh the benefits. And so you and I were talking about how through our work, we have seen some incredible results with PTSD and particularly with complex PTSD. And I'd love to, talk about that and even weave into how you see, the dream state from the psychedelic spaces or the MDMA spaces, how that was helpful for you, how you've seen that help other people.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to bring it around to, my expertise in the dream world. I wrote my master's thesis on Dreamwork and healing PTSD and sexual trauma, and I wrote my doctoral dissertation on using my very particular Dreamwork method, Embodied Imagination, for facing end of life. That was all kind of built towards, I now understand, applying those very same methods to psychedelic integration, because I believe that the images and in some ways the intent or beneficence that's held by dream images is the same. They're coming from the same source. And so what I'm trying to go back around to your question. So with MDMA, I feel like our integration method applies very, very well to helping people bring the experiences that they've had with MDMA into their waking normal lives. But more importantly, in particular, I'd say with MDMA, what you can do, because the integration process that we use is used after, right? It's not during. The medicines do what they do, and then afterwards we integrate. But with MDMA, you're able to actually work with someone while you're under the influence of this medicine. This is huge. This is just incredibly huge because of how the medicine works to sort of mediate one's capacity for shame, one's capacity for fear, one's capacity for, the shame one is huge, right? For survivors of sexual trauma. And with CPTSD, it just mediates so many of the things that have gripped you and held you so that you can kind of get underneath it and start to move it and start to look at it in a different way. And so, over almost 2 decades of working as a psychotherapist, the majority of my time I was working with women who were survivors of sexual trauma. And I'd say on average, depending on how deep and how much therapy they'd had and whatever, but to talk therapy someone's way out of all of the different survival mechanisms that they put in place so that they could become whole and reclaim their lives, 3 years. We're talking 3 years, right? 2-3 years. MDMA therapy for complex post-traumatic stress, or whatever those diagnostic terms you want to put on these things are. I've seen people, including myself, heal in ways similar to what I have seen in 2 to 3 years of talk therapy in 6 months. With really good preparation and integration, and with a really good facilitator, right? My own work was actually done with somebody who was a licensed therapist. But I mean, come on, it should be illegal that all those women had to suffer and be re-traumatized and struggle and whatever that was happening to their lives from the moment of trauma to even through therapy, because 3 years of therapy working on your sexual trauma is no walk in the park, right? And for me, it should be illegal I'm so frustrated that I could never offer that to them. I could never help them in that way. I could never give them that much ease when it's there. Mm-hmm. It's gross, and so we've got it backwards. Not that this should be illegal to give, but it should be illegal not to give.
Yeah.
Right?
I totally agree.
Because it helps. And the same thing with the veterans and everyone else. My area happens to be sexual trauma, but you can revisit things that you cannot visit in a waking state, in a normal state, under the influence of these medicines, in ways that heal big time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was fun. Thanks for tuning in, lovers. And if you want to experience more ecstasy and sexual liberation, head over to sexlovepsychedelics.com and learn about how you can join me for any one of my online or live events. And while you're there, grab my free guide on sex and psychedelics. Remember, this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please contact your healthcare provider and local law before pursuing any of the products or psychedelics discussed. And one final note here. I make this show specifically for you. If you're loving the show, then be sure to leave me a review in iTunes or Spotify to let me know. Happy to be here and happy to serve. I'll see you next time on Sex Love Psychedelics.